I look at life like it's a comedy, cause honestly, people commonly think that cosmically that there's one meaning for all, but now probably think there's only one path to follow. I find it comically absurd. Rethink your life, no hate if what you use works, but for others, no, your footsteps might be much worse. Don't worry about walking a mile in my shoes or vice versa. We might be able to fit each other's nights, but we have our own long nights, and what hurts us? And even if the shoes were switched and those shoes fit, life's just too different. Even if it's similar things we've seen, we can't trade up everywhere our craniums been.
Okay, let's get through here. All right, Greg, was it on the bottom of the screen there? There should be a camera and a microphone button. Is it the microphone button will allow you to be heard after it'll unmute you, and then the camera button will turn on your camera if you've got one.
That's why I laughed, throw my head back and let my mind grasp that I'm alive. Even though I didn't ask, here I am, I guess it's fine. Either do my best or waste away and die. Guess I can try to survive, to thrive, to vibe to every song I make. Got a world to shake, I'm here whether I wanna be or not, and it won't be for naught. Don't get caught up in my wake. I suppose I'll save you from drowning for your sake, but don't expect to be able to have your cake and eat it too. You owe me, fool, for risking my neck and livelihood for you, not doing what you should have done. If there was
excellent.
a coulda situation,
how's it going, man?
You could have done more. You should have done less. You would have, but you weren't motivated by the stress. I took most of it away just to give you less. But now the marks on my body pressed. I'll always forgive, but I just can't forget.
And just in time for the song to end too. That was amazing. Is it how's it going today, Greg? Oh no, can't hear.
Am I live?
Yeah, no, you're definitely live right now. Was it oh, check the oh no, we can hear you, yeah, so I don't know why. Can you hear me now? Hello? No. Yeah, try leaving and coming back real quick if you can. If you can, try leaving. Yeah, hello, testing. Hello? Do. Is it exiting and come back? Sweet. All right. Hopefully that they'll be able to hear us in just a minute. Is it thank you all for putting up with my track there for a second. I appreciate that. If 5 or 6 people that were in here to listen to it. Is it yeah, working on that here. Hello?
Yeah, this one's
Greg? Yeah. Hello?
This one.
Hello?
Yeti?
Is it you guys able to hear? Was it whoa, who do we got here? Oh, it's Travis there. You guys able to hear?
I don't know if you guys will be able to hear me, but we might need to try a Oh, they might be good.
Yeah,
can you guys hear me?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
good.
Yes. All right, gentlemen.
Okay, all right. No worries.
Yeah, no worries.
Happy that ended up working out. Was it a thank you for being here?
A lot of overlapping incompetence happening here, gentlemen. I apologize.
No worries, man. This site takes 2 seconds to get used to, and then as soon as I get used to it, it's a pretty good blast. So, was it thank you for being here today, Greg? Was it for everybody that doesn't know, Gregg Hurwitz is a novelist and a comic book author. He has and many other things, screenwriter, all sorts of stuff. He has many titles. Is it all to do with the literary arts, which is amazing. Is it he's done a was it he did the 2014 run of The Dark Knight, which was freaking just good job. Is it I haven't I need to get myself an actual physical copy. I've seen like a million like walkthroughs and talkthroughs of it online and checking out all the art and stuff like that. So I got to get my hands on a physical copy, especially because we're talking now. But thank you for being here today, man. Was it? I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Sorry it was a little bumpy on entry.
Oh, absolutely no worries, man. That's gonna be no problems here. We're all a little bumpy on entry sometimes. Is it? Let's see what we can get started with. So. Is it you dabble in was it writing books, going into authoring comics, screenwriting? Which one of those do you say would be like your favorite activity out of those ones when you get it down? Was it you like get in the screenwriting room more? Or you like sitting down and typing it out, or?
Well, you have to love them all equally. I mean, I will say, in college, I was a pole vaulter.
Okay.
And people used to say, "Oh, that seems like it's fun," and it's like, no, it's not fun. It's actually just kind of terrifying. But I also played soccer, and you can play pickup soccer also. And in a lot of ways, writing novels is like pole vaulting. It's like it takes everything you have. It takes all of your focus. And when it works, it's triumphant and amazing. But it's also scary because you feel like if you go off kilter, you can break your neck. You know, in novels, the novelist has to be all parts of the creative process. We're cinematographer, we're the director, we're hair and makeup, we're the location scout, right? We're costume. And everything else is more collaborative, right? If I'm writing a comic, I have an artist who's making me raising my game, right? Who's making me look smarter than I am, who's making the writing look amazing. Likewise with the screenplay, you know, you're working with other folks who get to kind of bring in and carry some of the weight. And so it's very different. But my first love is novels. I love working on them, but it's definitely a high bar. It's a high bar. It requires a great deal of focus.
No, I can only imagine, especially with as many as you come out with. Was it what series is that again? I got to make sure I don't mess up the name here. The Tim Rackley series? Was it like the Tim Rackley series going into the Orphan X series is like 27 books, right?
Yeah, well, between all my books, I think I have 23 or 24. I had a lot of standalones too. I wrote these Hitchcock Everyman standalones before I settled in with Orphan X. And Orphan X has been a lot of fun. That's been the last 8. And the 8th one just came out. It's called The Last Orphan.
Nice. Was it could you throw like a quick synopsis for everybody that may not have heard the books real quick? Was like,
well, so Orphan X is he's an assassin who was taken out of a foster home at the age of 12 and raised and trained up to be an assassin. Nice. And one of the things that his handler and father figure told him when he was 12 years old is he said, the hard part won't be making you a killer. The hard part's going to be keeping you human. And so before the series even begins, he's sort of like, those are 2 trains on a collision course. And so before the series even begins, he's already fled the program because he was committing these executions that were pretty much in violation of his humanity. And he's gone off and he's become essentially a pro bono assassin. He has an encrypted phone number, 1-855-2-nowhere. You guys can all call it and you can see if anyone answers, if Orphan X answers the phone.
That's actually cool.
And it's with people who are in just desperate need and hardship and they have nowhere else to turn. They're being terrorized by another person or another set of people. And Evan Smoke, Orphan X, will go in and he will help them. And in The Last Orphan, this is the book in which his past doesn't just catch up with him, it overtakes him. And he's basically bound and gagged. He finds himself at the end of a massive manhunt, and he's hauled before no less a figure than the president of the United States. And she basically tells him, look, you know, there's a rambunctious and renegade billionaire. We're familiar with them lately in the news. Who's out there, who's accrued this massive amount of power. He's almost like his own nation state. And the president needs him eliminated. And only one person in the world could ever do that. That's the greatest trained government asset that they've ever produced, Orphan X. And that's part of why she sought him and captured him. And she says only one person can get through his security and execute him and leave no fingerprints and nothing pointing back to me. And that's you. And so he has to choose between his life or upholding his code. And his code is that he never again would commit executions based on political orders or based on orders that could be corrupt unless he can figure out a third way. And that third way is the way of the orphan. And so the book finds him at the least empowered he's ever been. He's bound, he's gagged, he's hauled before her, and he's given this impossible choice. And that's the kickoff to The Last Orphan.
Oh, very nice, man. That sounds like that. I mean, that sounds super awesome, actually. Was it? I know there's a couple of those in the series so far. Which one of those so far would you say has been the most like fun for you to write?
I mean, The Last Orphan's amazing. It just came out just a couple weeks ago, and it's been great having that out in the
Absolutely.
world. I make sure every book is a fresh jumping on point for readers, so that they don't need to have read the whole. If you read the whole series, there is a bigger arc, and I drop handkerchiefs for consistent series readers along the way. But every book can be read on its own, and I would highly recommend people jumping in on The Last Orphan, and then if you like it, you can go back to the beginning.
No, that always makes sense. I enjoy when authors go out of their way to make sure that it's not the series isn't gate kept by knowledge, like pre-knowledge. It's like, oh, go into the fourth book. I'm sorry if you didn't read the last two, you're pretty much lost. And the first book had the origin, and they're not going to explain it again. So
that's right.
So it's a lot of fun.
No, we reset for everybody. All new readers welcome, or listeners. The audiobook's been great. I have a terrific audiobook reader.
Nice. Was it that's really awesome. Was it there was a run of Moon Knight comics that you did, and it looked like, and I couldn't tell because I didn't get the full description, but it looked like a small anthology of him running into different superheroes and superpower beings throughout the way, just having like one-on-ones with them in various ways. And one of the ones that interested me right away when I saw it was the one with him and Sentry on the cover, and that just instantly blew. I was like, wait, he's gonna fight Sentry? What? And I'm like, oh my goodness. And like that one, I've actually I think I've got on order because I want to know specifically what he does against the Sentry, because that's Marvel's Superman. And I mean, Moon Knight's cool, but I gotta see whatever, I don't know how he would do. I don't know how he would do that.
It was really fun. I mean, it even swung. I had him face off with Deadpool, which was really fun. This was before the movie, the Deadpool movies. I wrote that Moon Knight run a while back, and then I even swung Spider-Man through one of the issues just so that I could. I always wanted to write Spider-Man. I mean, at this point, I got to write my favorite characters. But I wanted to make sure I could get Spider-Man in there in some fashion. Right. And I went from Moon Knight on to basically after Moon Knight, I went to DC to write Batman. And so obviously Moon Knight and Batman, fill a version of the same space, the same way Sentry does with Superman, right?
Yeah, no, it's basically, you got Batman with a very, very, very light touch of Deadpool, and you can get in there pretty good. And also, I don't know, was the version that you were using, and I know I'm going to get super nerdy about the comic book stuff, but I can't help it. I'm trying to like save it to the end so I can totally nerd out. But in the version that you wrote there, was he still capable of controlling like moon parts and stuff like that? But because there's a few issues and stuff that I've seen where he's been able to like move Thor's hammer around because Uru is apparently a form of moon metal. And so I'm like, if we're dealing with that level of Moon Knight, maybe him against the Sentry is not such a crazy matchup,
Moon Knight is such a wild character to write, man. There's so many different parts. It's so fragmented. I actually really loved how the series, particularly how it opened, the TV series, he's a really complicated character to write. There's so many pieces and components, and to write somebody who has multiple personalities in a way that you can hold the thread and have it make sense. And also, he's a street level guy, but also communes with the mystical, unless he's merely insane. I mean, so it's a very tricky character. And I thought they did a really nice job. Oscar Isaacs obviously is a huge talent. They did a really nice job with that series. I don't know if you watched it.
No, I actually, I have not watched it yet. There's a lot of superhero shows I got to catch up on because there's so many right now.
So many. Are you more comics guy or like a novel thriller?
It's more like I check out comics more, but I usually check them out through the medium of like a retelling because it's more engaging for me to hear it. I can read it and the art's just like amazing. Usually, that's 90% of why I would get the books. Is amazing the art is, but like hearing it read out to me is a lot more fun for me. Dramatic readings of the comics, so I usually go through them that way. Like I like listened to a guy talk for 6 hours through the entirety of Injustice because I just
really?
Yeah, it was a really amazing run right there. Was it but yeah, it's a lot of fun for me to check that out. I do a lot of I try not to do it too much for everybody because it gets really annoying, but I do a lot of like power scaling and stuff and stuff like that about characters and such. So getting to talk to somebody who's been in the driver's seat of some of that is a lot of fun. Is it I guess while we're on the topic of that,
Power scaling meaning like how you rank their different
oh
powers?
yeah, like it's pretty much like which some versions of Superman get hit by like a stinger missile and they're like stunned for a second and you're like, okay, like he's totally fine, he's not hurt or nothing, but he got stopped by just a regular missile. And then there's other versions that are just tanking nuclear blasts from the sun nonstop and it's not even relevant to him. So
it's funny. I wrote a Wolverine episode. I wrote the first Wolverine annual, and I called it the Death Song of J. Patrick Smitty. For all you English majors out there, that's an homage to T.S. Eliot's the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And so I had all this imagery woven throughout, but I have one scene where Wolverine falls into a giant vat of liquid steel or liquid iron, like at the end of the Terminator.
Okay.
And then I had him emerging in his full adamantium skeleton. But I got a call from my editor. You'd love this stuff. This is like deep nerd stuff, man. And they said it had to go to like the think tank around Wolverine to determine how long he could reconstitute from an adamantium skeleton. There was like this big debate around it. And finally, what we did in the comic is we just showed his like molten footprints leading out to dodge the question of what he might look like given the time frame. But as you know, I mean, with science fiction, with horror, with anything supernatural, superheroes, you've got to get those. You've got to get the rules right.
100%.
You have to get them right, and they have to be consistent.
That's one of the things I wanted to get into as well. Continuity for me when it comes to a run, specifically just like a run, is like super important. Like when somebody introduces like the god slaying weapon and there's only one of the god slaying weapons and it's like this is the only god slaying weapon, and then they get it gets sent to another dimension, somebody steals it, and then they're like, well, don't worry, I happen to have a second god killing weapon over here, and it's like no, you guys said and set up there was only one god killing weapon.
Yeah, the Deus Ex Machina god killing weapon.
If we could. It's a lot of movies that it's like, oh, well, the super space elevator got blown up. No, it didn't. I got another one on the other side of the planet. We're good. It's fine. But every time I get into it a lot more in about it's far worse in comics and anime than it is in novels usually, or comics and mangas. The manga's way worse. Like the continuity breaks every 4 seconds. But the comics at least, I like that the runs try to keep power continuous and things like that. I like and enjoy when I see some like a street level guy get like a scuff across his arm from like a really powerful bullet and he's like all messed up for a second. He's like, that didn't feel good. And then later he's got a bandage and then like, his arm's finally healed up. Like things like that leading through the story just make it the world more immersive. And to see like, oh, well, this one panel, he couldn't lift up a car, but this other panel, he's stopping a train. It's like, that would just break immersion for me almost instantly. So I'm happy to hear that you enjoy like continuity and consistency as well. It's really important as a reader for me.
Oh yeah, our job is to carry readers, no matter what the form is, it's to carry readers across the suspension of disbelief. And you have to give just enough telling to tale, right? Just enough verisimilitude for them to feel like they're in the story. Like you've given enough of an explanation that they don't hang up on it, and not so much that they're running into a wall.
Right. No, absolutely. That makes 100% sense to me. Have you seen any movies or like maybe TV shows recently that had like a really deep or powerful literary quality to them? Like something like that may have stood out to you, like as of late, that just it really.
I mean, for me, I was deeply moved by Queen's Gambit.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I thought it was exceptional. I actually am doing Scott Frank, who adapted that. He did Get Shorty. He did Minority Report. He did Walk Among the Tombstones. Wonderful. He wrote and directed a lot of those. But I'm working with him on 8 of my novels to produce them, actually, in part because of how much I fell in love with Queen's Gambit. Okay. It's just amazing that her superpower, right, it really depicted the difference between that every blessing comes with a curse, and how she's walking the line of that with her genius at playing chess. I just thought it was incredibly compelling, and I thought it was deeply and profoundly literary. I also thought, when you're talking about stuff that feels much deeper that way, I love Chernobyl. I mean, I thought that
I have not gotten to check that out yet. I've seen a little bit of Queen's Gambit. I've not gotten to check out Chernobyl yet.
Chernobyl's exceptional.
Okay. That, I mean, coming from, I imagine it's actually pretty exceptional at that point. Is it that's good to hear. Is it some recommendations for everybody in the audience? Apparently, check out Queen's Gambit and Chernobyl. Apparently, literarily strong. Is it on the topic of like movies and media and such? Is it? Do you think with as many TV shows and movies and miniseries and sub-series and every bit of media that is video now, that literature is an important art form as it is today? Like, and do you think it's maintaining its strength? Do you think it's falling off a little bit, the written word, as it comes to?
That's a really interesting question. I remember when I first got to Los Angeles, I went and got a couple, like a set of 3 or 5 tickets to the opera house here, because I love the opera. And I remember when I went there, I was looking around and I thought, God, I'm the youngest person in here by like 40 years. And then I was thinking, in the future, I wonder if we're going to still have opera houses in most major cities, or is there just going to be like, Covent Garden, La Scala, and New York, right? Are there just going to be a few left? How many people are still loving this? And I think this a lot with novels, because a lot of readers are tending older and people's attention span is getting chopped up. And the thing I always return to is I think about what Lin-Manuel Miranda did with Hamilton that was so extraordinary, which is to write, a musical about our founding fathers that was so brilliant and so compelling and so embodied in the present while connecting themes all the way back to the beginning of America, that it sort of redefined what the reach of musical theater could be. And so I feel in some ways like, as an artist, it's easy to complain about the fact that people are losing their training and interest in opera, that they're losing an interest in novels. But for me, I always reset to think part of my job as a novelist is to make the novel compelling still, right? Is how do I mean, and J.K. Rowling did this pretty damn well also, right? How do you make books a foundational event? How do you make it where it's so compelling that our job is to breathe new life into these forms, to revivify them, and to bring in new people, to bring in new readers? So I think it's incredibly important, not that we just kind of throw up our hands and complain about TikTok and condensed attention spans, but that as artists or as creators and as entertainers, that we're striving to making these things really compelling for people, so that our job and our responsibility is to keep that flame alive for what these forms are.
Absolutely. It sounds like you're telling everybody that's in this case that's an artist in their own way that feels like maybe their attention's getting stolen, or they're by these like quick attention span, short things. It's like maybe step up your game a little bit, like get everybody excited about your stuff. You can get people off TikTok if your stuff's good enough, if you've got enough fire behind.
Well, I mean, it's the only way to look at it. I mean, what's the other way? Is you just complain that the rest of the world's attention span isn't matching what it is you're trying to do. I mean, it's part of our job to sort of educate and bring new people into these forms. And that's for anything. That's comics, that's movies,
Absolutely.
Right? It's make something incredibly compelling. Make something as compelling as you can imagine.
That's an awesome message. And I would agree with that 100%. If you're going to go into the field at all, it's better to try triumph than to sit and wonder, well, why isn't it working? Or just complain about it. 100%. Sounds some amazing advice there. Let's see. Was it when it comes to deep literary art, as far like from what your experience, was it do you think that there's specifically in like the book realm, do you think it's kind of getting filled up with like self-help books and like get rich quick books and these kind of like empty, chicken soup for the soul but not as good type of is it things? Do you think that the world's kind of getting saturated a little bit with like stuff like that, or do you think there's enough like fresh novelists that are coming out to keep things going?
There's a lot of fresh talent and novelists. It's been really interesting. So I'm the co-president of International Thriller Writers.
Okay.
We represent 5,000 members. I mean, we have like billions of books in print. And one of the things that's been amazing, one of our aims was to really reach out into the community and get younger people, get YA artists, get people from all kinds of different backgrounds reading. I've been amazed at how much young talent there is up and coming. And we keep kind of watering the soil and seeing the next generation come up and the generation behind that and all these different voices. So there's a lot going on that's pretty exciting within the world of there's always been a bunch of stuff. You're talking about feeling like there's a lot of self-help stuff saturating the market. But I think every era, we tend to think back of like the golden age of movies, that there's all these amazing movies, right? Casablanca and, all the Hitchcock. But if you go back to that era, there was a lot of shitty movies too. We just don't remember that, right? True. Like a lot of the programmers from the studios didn't survive in a way that To Catch a Thief did. And so I think every era has the cream that will rise to the top and that will sustain. But it also has a lot of other noise that's in there, right? And sometimes these self-help books can be amazing, right, or can be seminal in their own right. So I'm not denigrating that as a form, but I'm saying every era has its own kind of version of good and excess, for lack of a better word.
Right. Okay. So I see what you're saying. Like everybody's got their Hitchcock and everybody's got their schlock. It makes 100% sense. Is it No, I'm loving this conversation right now. By the way, I get to get a little nerdy. I get to talk about books. This is really awesome so far. Again, appreciate you coming here. Everybody, again, this is Gregg Hurwitz. I encourage you to go check out his many novels. What is your do you have a favorite book or series of books? And when I say books, I'm going to be like specifically in the book category, no comics.
Well, I love the Spencer for Hire series.
Spencer for Hire. I don't know if I've heard of it.
Robert B. Parker. It was a TV show. It's he wrote through the 70s and 80s. And he was the first person. It was a very big TV show in the 70s. And in fact, it was just remade as a Netflix movie, I think, with Mark Wahlberg. But he really took the private eye from Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett and James M. Cain and put the private eye in the real world, where he's a super tough guy. He's from Boston. He's a former boxer. But he cooks and he's got a relationship with a significant other and he deals with psychology. And what Robert B. Parker did was he bridged from these old kind of tough film noir-like detectives and put him in the real world and made a contemporary version of that. And I've thought about that a lot as I'm writing Orphan X. I found myself revisiting those novels that I had read as a kid. And part of that is that when Evan is taken out of the foster home at the age of 12, and I mentioned this to you, this for me is the key line around which the series coalesces. Gotcha. His handler from the CIA and his father figure says to him, the hard part isn't going to be turning you into a killer. The hard part's keeping you human. And in a way, my Orphan X series is about his process of becoming, of trying to figure out. One of the things I say is he was raised in a silo, right? Only training in mixed martial arts, hand-to-hand combat, sniping, psychological operations, drown proofing, cultural etiquette,
everything, but
completely separate. And so one of the things I remark about Orphan X is he never learned how to speak the strange language of intimacy. And so how I describe the series is like at the beginning of the series, he almost realizes that he's Pinocchio, but he wants to be a real boy, right? He realizes that he wants to understand how people process emotion and are in relationship with each other because he doesn't get it. He's on the outside. It's like he's got his face up to the glass and he's looking in at all these people living the kinds of lives that he himself can never live. But as a wolf who was trained to hunt other wolves, the one thing he can do when that phone rings and somebody needs his help is he can go and he can preserve for them the kind of life that he himself could never have. And so I think that the Spencer for Hire series with Robert B. Parker does in mysteries, which I didn't quite realize until I wondered why I was going back rereading this beautiful series, is sort of like what I'm trying to do for thrillers in Orphan X.
Well, that's awesome. So, okay. So taking those elements of like those like really, really amazing classic stories, like getting those like noir elements in there. Noir is an amazing type of medium, whether it's in a book or film. I always think it's cool. I don't know exactly how they would do it in books, for sure, but I loved in every noir film when like they would be like in the middle of a scene and like somebody would walk in and say like a really like quippy line, and then like everything would darken and go black, and there'd be a spotlight. The detective would like turn, and he'd be like looking right at the camera, and he's like, and there she was, staring at me dead in the face. Like, I've never seen such a beautiful dame walk into my office before, and I knew it'd be trouble. And it just like slowly cuts back to it. I love the entirety, the aesthetic of it. Was it that's what actually was it a little bit of a tangent, but it's still on the noir topic. There's a Spider-Man noir who I thought was super freaking just super amazing because he embodied that like aspect of it. Then I found out how dark that entire universe was, and I was like, oh wow, this is really noir.
It's a great example of that is Frank Miller's Sin City.
Oh yeah. Oh man, was that
right.
Man.
That plays with that trope quite beautifully. And the comics are amazing. The movie's amazing. Jessica Alba's great in it. Mickey Rourke. I mean, it's an incredible cast. But they really capture that tone. And like you said, there's a wry humor. It's very severe style, right? A lot of shadow, a lot of stark lighting. And I love it. It's a very powerful, intense, sexy medium.
No, absolutely. And especially with the Sin City, with the few choices of splash color that they had in there, it really set the tone for like everything. You check out, it's like, why everything, whoa, and your eye is just immediately 100% pulled, and now it's the most interesting thing about the whole area. Like you just won't be able to look away. It's really, really amazing. So when it comes to let's see, which question I want to ask you here do you think that journalistic literature, here we're shifting gears pretty hard, I'm not gonna lie, do you think the journalistic literature has any integrity to it, and can we analyze journalism as literature, or is it something different?
Now, when you say journalistic literature, do you mean like Truman Capote's In Cold Blood, or do you mean like longer pieces like Sebastian Junger?
Probably like Sebastian
Junger. Yeah, I mean, I think there's amazing integrity. It's its own, discipline, journalism, and done correctly. I've written some pieces, more kind of op-eds and essays and the like, but yeah, it's an incredible form when people can really go out and figure out how to crack open a story properly and to make all the players in it to evoke from them the feelings that we feel as if they're almost fictional characters, how you find that, how you depict something. I think it's an incredible form.
Oh, that's okay. That's good to hear. Was it let's see, so we can analyze journals. That's good to hear there. I know I've got like this entire list over here. I'm trying to make sure I'm not like rushing you through. Was it actually we can go over here. I've got one of my people that come in here quite often. Cardinal Nature's got some questions here on the side for, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The first couple are a little fun. Let's see, how many stories are left to be told? I imagine he thinks that the archetypes have been used up in some sort of way to a great deal.
Well, there's always a new spin. Like if we're in the world of books, I was talking about Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett, then you have Robert B. Parker, then you have Michael Connelly and Dennis Lehane and Robert Crace, right? Like, so all these stories can kind of move throughout time and they're endless. I studied Shakespeare some. I got a master's in Shakespearean tragedy of all things because I needed a very practical degree to enter the job force if my career as a novelist fell through.
I mean, the Batman, it probably helped a lot with Batman. I mean,
it helped a lot with everything. I mean, the thing people don't remember with Shakespeare is, the only truly original play that he wrote was The Tempest. I mean, everything he wrote was so like the Jew of Malta became the Merchant of Venice, right? The histories are based on Petrarch. And so there are stories that it's always about like, what's the new perspective? What's a way that you can bring it forward and honor it, right? But also add your own twist. And I found this a lot when I was working on Batman. I had a lot of fun with the form and playing with the fact that our readers, our pop culture consumers now are so sophisticated, right? I mean, we have internet, you have the forums, you have like the deep readings that you were referring to where people go through and there's all sorts of different levels of access. And so in a weird way, as a writer, we have to sort of treat the audiences as if they were pop culturally aware, because everybody is now. And I had one scene, I mean, you know, the archetypal scene always is like someone's talking to Batman and they turn around and he's gone. So I did one thing. One of the most popular frames that I had, or panels that I had, is where Commissioner Gordon, he's in his office and he's worried and it's at night, and Batman like appears out of nowhere and it's all in shadow and they're having a conversation. And Commissioner Gordon looks out his window and he's talking, and then he pauses and he goes, "Wait, this is the part where I turn around and you're not there anymore." And then the next panel, there's a word bubble, dialogue bubble out from off the camera, and it just says, "Nope." And then they turn around and Batman and Commissioner Gordon just look at each other all awkward, and then they walk away different ways, and they go, "All right then, very well." And so it was this funny thing where I was sort of playing with a trope, because everybody knows that that's what Batman does. Yeah. You turn around, he's gone, but he didn't do it. And there was this awkward comedic beat.
Oh, man.
And it was funny. You never know when you're writing which things are going to sort of connect with people and connect with fans and will get shared a lot. And I got to say, that's one of the most shared panels or little runs of panels of all my time I worked in comics. Like, people just thought that was hysterical, because it's playing with something that's an older theme or motif, but updating it in a way that the reader is on the inside of it. And so I think I always have a chance to do that with stories. We always have a chance to reinvent and reinvigorate them.
No, 100%. I absolutely love it, because like when I think of it, it just makes me think that, like, you know, poor Gordon's like, oh wait, so he's definitely, he's probably gone. I've got the hang of this now. You know, I'm up on the beat. You know, he's disappeared. I've got it all. Oh shit. All right. Yep, we're gonna go ahead and leave. That's amazing. I love that. Is it 1 second? I think I'm using a Bluetooth speaker, and it for some reason likes to just go out when it wants to. So there we go. Everybody's back. Is it let's see. Cardinal Nature also asks, this is an interesting one. So if I asked you to compare yourself to authors like Terry Goodkind or Piers Anthony, how would you do so?
Very different. That's not as much I didn't go in as much with fantasy, science fiction, or history or historical novels. I was much more in a lane of, I mean, I like horror, right? Don't get me wrong. I loved Stephen King growing up. You know, I like Crichton and Crichton's escapades into the supernatural adjacent, let's just say. But my real love and bread and butter was crime fiction and thrillers that were a bit more grounded in that regard. And that was sort of what I've come up in. It's very interesting with fantasy. I think people read fantasy from childhood and carry that forward with them. There's not a lot of people who arrive at that later. And for some reason, I never got on that bus in a big way.
It's
But I mean, I know the works are amazing. I co-write some of my screenplays. I have a writing partner, Philip Eisner, who wrote Event Horizon.
Oh, wow.
We had a movie come out last year called Sweet Girl, starring Jason Momoa on Netflix. He's a giant fantasy, like, gaming fan. Like, we have these different kind of pockets that when we work together, we draw from different area codes sometimes, which is a lot of fun.
Oh man, that's awesome. Was it if Jason Momoa is also like a wargaming fan, that means that like him and Henry Cavill like totally went and played like Warhammer 40K completely after they each said it. Like they 100% went and did that. Then that's amazing. Like there's just no way you wouldn't 40K. But was it have you ever actually that's a fun topic. Do you ever do tabletops? You ever been you ever do a 40K or a D&D or like Vampire the Masquerade? No,
not a game guy.
Not a game. Okay, no worries, man. Was it D&D is something I do all the time. It's I'm one of the reasons why I'm like I really follow the fantasy of it. It's just I'm in the business, at least when it comes to my friends wanting to play games, of creating worlds and random characters and stuff. Unfortunately, I'm very off the top of my head, I don't really like write down a whole lot. So there's like a great narrative that's being spun, but I forget it as it's going. So like all of my players are like, "Oh my god, do you remember this?" And I'm like, yeah, I do. Very important. Let's go ahead and put that back right here in my notes. No, is it loads of loads?
Yeah, I'm used to building out worlds, you know, within the context of a screenplay or a novel, but I haven't done it. I haven't tackled that as much from a gaming perspective.
It's got to be. I imagine it's way more detailed in your perspective, because all I really have to say from my position is I go, okay, there's a planet, there's a world. This part's people, this part's orcs, And this part's dwarves. From there, like everybody's name's made up. Like cities maybe get a name if I've got time.
You populate the world somewhat inconsistently,
and then like I pretty much pick out everybody's favorites at that point. It's just like I'll make like 15 characters in a city. They only like one of them, and I'm like, okay, he'll be reoccurring. He'll come back because they like him. Is it no, not very. I can't sit and type. I just can't do it. I don't have the wherewithal. I get like a page or two in.
It's funny. That's
and
all
I
I
give
do.
up. I can't.
My life is sitting and
Hey
typing.
man, friggin' props to you for being able to do it for so long. More than an hour. I find any excuse. I like doing it. It's a lot of fun. I love writing stuff, but if I had like the talk thing, maybe it would work a little bit better for me. I don't know. Was it let's see here. Where are we at? Oh, it's literary. So, do you enjoy poetry of any kind? Do you have any favorite like poets or anything like that?
I do. I love Byron, Keats, and Shelley. I love the Romantic poets. I love E. E. Cummings. Shakespeare, of course. The sonnets are amazing, and the plays are, iambic pentameter. They're poetic as well. It's a form I love. I love Gwendolyn Brooks as a contemporary favorite. So yeah, I do. I don't read it as much, but it's funny. I'm trying to kind of return to it now and then. Some of the things that we love that kind of nourish us creatively. It's funny that we tend to study a lot of that stuff in high school and college. It's very important to return to it later on and to kind of reinterpret and reengage with it.
I think so as well. It's a great tool in any case to express yourself through any way. There's a bunch of different mediums for it. Haikus basically allow you to say whatever you want as long as you follow the 575. It could be as absolutely ridiculous as you want it to be, and it's a haiku. So that's that's amazing. All it has to do is fit the format. There's a lot of ways to express yourself that way. I find poetry really beautiful. I don't have any particular poets because, again, I roll through. I see stuff online. I'm like, this is a really beautiful poem. Then I go on to the next thing, unfortunately. That low attention span that we all have. Or at least I do. Is it, let's see here. What is like the most modern trend in genre that you see right now? Like what's the most like right now, like what's everything like maybe moving towards, or where have things been when it comes to like the general genre of the popular stuff you've been seeing?
That's an interesting question. I mean, for a long time we had the girl on a train, girl on the window, right? Girl upside down, girl in a
with
house.
a dragon.
That's right. And I think that one of the things that we're seeing, this might be a little bit more on the film feature film side.
Okay.
And also with TV, there's a big movement into horror right now. Like horror seems to be the one thing that can be made at scale in box office and still has outsized effects. And so there's been a real rejuvenation of horror films and narratives, especially stuff that's striving to be high end. And that's been really fun. I've been playing with that a little bit on the screenwriting front.
That's amazing. I was actually, funnily enough, that was my guess when it came to what the next the next genre of movies are going to be to me. I no joke. I actually did believe it would be horror, but I think that the change that's been happening recently is it's going from the monster underneath your bed or the demon that you've summoned or the pact that you've broken. It's changing from that to the guy that lives 3 doors down that you know has like this one weird little problem and everybody thought it was okay, but it's not, or the realistic type of situations. Like it's almost like the most amazing types of horror right now are things that can actually happen that are put into like a twisted way that you weren't expecting. Because things with monsters, I don't think grasp people as much anymore. I don't think it snags their attention the same way. Like a big monster is really cool and scary to see on screen with the CGI and stuff like that, but I don't think anybody's legitimately afraid anymore due to how much we just generally know. Like there's not going to be a giant monster. But when you switch it over to the realism, there most certainly could be a very nice old lady that you're trying to help pick up her groceries that slices the back of your Achilles tendon and then starts dragging you into an alley. You know what I mean? And that's just it. I think the realisticness is what gets people involved in the horror nowadays.
But in a lot of horror, has to have an overlap with the psychological. I mean, we saw that in It Follows. We saw that in Smile. We've of course saw that in Rosemary's Baby. But I'm thinking about, did you see the Babadook?
Babadook. I don't think I did.
Great little horror movie, right? Where the monster, the apparition, is very closely tied to depression, right? Where the themes are really hitting on different levels psychologically.
Hold on a second.
That tends to be.
I apologize. I have to interrupt. Did you actually bust out an improvised haiku like in like 4 seconds? I'm looking over. I didn't realize that was you. I thought somebody else answered. That was amazing. You actually just busted out the haiku. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just didn't actually realize that was you who responded. That was amazing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I figure Snickle Fitz von Fitty Britches was asking a question, so it deserves to be answered.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize for that. That was just too good. I didn't realize that you'd crafted a haiku for them already. And no, is it? But yeah, when it comes to the horror, you are right. The overlap with the psychological, the things that could actually tick away at you. Is it like for me? When it comes to movies, if I see somebody's head get chopped off, I'm not. It's here or there. That happens all the time in movies. Now, if somebody was getting like 1,000 paper cuts or like 1,000 stings randomly by bees or something like that, or like by razors flying all over the room, that I don't like that kind of. I'd be like, like the slower, more subtle, slightly more painful versions of that would get my attention more than the big grandiose get split in half or have somebody stab you through the chest.
Got quite an imagination there, man. I like it.
I try to keep it under control. Is it for the most part? You don't use it to get myself in trouble. Honestly, is it again? I would totally try and write something. I just hate typing. It's the only thing about. It's like the biggest thing that would stop me from giving it a shot. It's like if I could just talk into like one of those. It was like it's called a dragonfly or something like that. This thing you could talk into to type. I just need that. Is it up? So I think Carnal had one more over here.
All right, let's do one more question from Carnal Nature.
Oh, is it? Yeah, was it? How long do you have, by the way? I don't want to keep you for like forever.
I'm good. I got another engagement coming up soon, but I can certainly do one more question. Carnal Nature's been asking a lot of questions, so I'm certainly happy to answer one more.
Absolutely, I appreciate that very, very much. Is it? Let's see. Which one do I want it to be? Is it going to be that one? No, it's going to be this one here. So, how long would you say he asks it takes you to develop your storyline and then do your read over while you're writing it? Was and I would say I think this would probably be best like towards like Orphan X or like your latest book. Like how long maybe?
So I had a notion for Orphan X. It took me 4 years to write it because I was writing these standalone books, and I really wanted to make sure if I wrote a new series character that it would be that I understood how to differentiate it, so that maybe one day it could be in the pantheon, that Orphan X could be in that pantheon of all the characters I grew up with, like Bourne and Bond and Reacher,
right?
And so I had a couple notions, but I kept writing another book first and another book first because I really was waiting to differentiate him. In general, it takes me a year to write a book, but some ideas percolate and marinate a lot longer while I'm working on other things. And then I'm constantly reading over and reading through it and editing as I go and as I move forward. That's a constant process. And so it really helps a lot. It used to be when I wrote my first book, I wrote 16 drafts. The first draft was terrible, and I wrote 16 drafts of it before finally having it be ready. And I'd say that now my rough draft or my first draft is a lot further along because I've learned a lot, not just in terms of getting the first words down, but I edit a lot as I go and I fix and I adjust. So by the time I type the end, it's a lot further along than my books used to be.
Awesome. So yeah, so something like the latest book that you're just came out, was it Orphan X? Everybody go check that out. Make sure you grab a copy of that. Was it that one took you 4 years, and you said you had multiple projects going on at the same time. So you don't just fixate on like one book. You're like, okay, I've got all these ideas. I'm going to start going on this one. I'm going to start after this one. I've got an idea for that. Okay.
Well, I'm touring right now. For instance, I just finished a tour for The Last Orphan, but I'm working on the next Orphan X book that's going to be out 10 months from now. I also just released a new comic book, graphic novel called New Think that's sort of like Black Mirror meets the Twilight Zone about tech addiction and polarization.
Okay.
And that's been a lot of fun. So I've been working on that, and then I'm working on a couple screenplays. And so often there's a bunch of different projects that I'm kind of drawing from and working with.
Oh, well, that's freaking awesome, man. Was it what was it? We got you for maybe a minute or two longer. You said you had to go pretty soon. Was it if that's the case, which I don't want to hold you for too longer than you want to be here. Was it so? Is there anything that you want to plug or anything that you want to drop? Make sure everybody gets a chance to check it out. Any like website or?
No, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad to be on talking about The Last Orphan. I mean, I'd love to welcome all kinds of readers, new readers aboard to the Orphan X series. And I'd say for your nerdy comic book brain, Captain, go check out New Think.
New Think. Okay, I'm gonna have.
I think you'll get a kick out of it.
I did see it.
It's a lot of fun. We have 5 different artists. It's an anthology graphic novel, and we got 5 different artists that were really fun.
All right, I'm actually gonna write that down real quick. I appreciate your time, Greg. It's been awesome chatting with you. I loved your insights on literature. I thought like a lot of your opinions were really great. I'm happy that somebody who has actually been writing for DC and Marvel like agrees with a lot of the same things I do when it comes to writing. So that's really amazing. Is it
Well, thank you for having me on. It's a good group you have here, and to everybody who's on here talking with, thank you all, and we'll talk anon.
Awesome, man. If you ever want to come back or anything like that, do another one. Absolutely, just get in contact. We'll get in contact. We'll totally do another one of these. Absolutely, no problem, man. You have a great one. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Oh man, guys, that was super awesome. I had such a fun time. I don't know if anybody else had as fun a time as I did. I might have had more fun than everybody else here, actually. I'm not going to lie. So, I wanted to get more nerdy, but I also realized that it was probably like most of the people in here just like, I probably don't want to get that nerdy. So I did my best to reel that in, but I definitely have like a 5-minute plus little nerdy session there. One second. If anybody wants to pop in real quick and maybe talk about anything like that, was it? Oh, I'd love to. Was it? And if not, was it? It's been about an hour. I super appreciate everybody's time. I really, really hope you enjoyed the show. Is it? Check out Gregg Hurwitz's stuff. It's amazing. Is it? I actually have the link somewhere here set up in the page for what's on my bookshelf. I have the books that I actually like to read. I don't have right now. Besides, like, let me see what I have actually right now. I've got a Guinness Book of World Records. I've got a Naruto manga. Yeah, my books aren't. I've got The Giver over there. My books aren't. I don't know where my books are. Is it? If I had all my books, there would be the entire Harry Potter series, the Twilight series, Darren Shan series, my Magic Treehouse series from when I was a kid, the Percy Jackson series from when I was also a kid. I would also, I read a couple of Stephen King books. I can't remember. I think Under the Dome, a couple of those ones as well. I don't. Is it really That's a fun fact. But yeah, no. Again, I thank you guys for being here. How many Bibles in that bookshelf? No Bibles. Zero Bibles. No Bibles. None of those. I might be able to pull out a children's Bible for you. It's about it. As far as the writing goes, it's about as good as the actual Bible. How's it going, Colonel? Of course. Okay. Well, I mean, I hopefully anything or some of the things that we talked about in here helped out. Yeah, Stephen. He's not doing a Stephen King where he's putting out 19 books a year. You know what I mean? It's not. No, I haven't. Oh, the Forgotten Realm. Yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Oh man, you know my favorite fantasy series was. I mean, I was a kid when I read it, but it was it was my favorite fantasy series for a long time. Was it a Deltora Quest? It is an amazing. It's for young adults. It's not like an adult grown up book, but the story was very cool. Was it a basic hero's journey story all the way throughout the book series? But it was a really good set of books. It was one of my favorites. Is it a Lawhead? No. Oh, maybe I have. I have seen the Pendragon. I might have read the first Pendragon book. Yeah. Awesome. Was it anything else you want to add, Colonel? I've got Maria here coming up on the caller. Awesome. No man, no problem, man. I appreciate you. We've got Maria von Fittybridges. How's it going, Maria von Fittybridges? Mm. Fair enough. Wow, that is quite a few. Was it no, probably not. Was it everybody that is currently watching, if you go up to the part underneath the camera view where it says the Pangburn Hangout, if you click on the arrow just to the right at the end of that, it'll lead you over to a link. It's the Pangbird Discussion Community Discord server, and that's where the Pangburn Hangout goes afterwards. It's that gray bar right underneath the video. Just click the arrow to the right, it'll take you to the link. You just go ahead and click on that. That'll send you right to the Discord, and you can join us down there for further discussion and further conversation about this topic and many others. Was it Maria? I want to thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming up real quick. Was it Carl? Thank you for coming up as well. I thought this was an amazing discussion, and I really appreciate everybody being here for this. This was a lot of fun for me, and I hope it was as much fun as it was for you guys. Oh, you missed it? It's down here. Yeah. Was it he said or you said, can you improvise a haiku about an unanswered question? Greg Hurwitz did answer almost immediately. He said mystery calls, unseen answers await us. What will we discover? No, it was very powerful, and he answered it very quickly. It was a show of his skill as well as it was a great question by you. But I am going to go ahead and get ready to end the show. Is that I thank everybody again for being here. Please join the Pangburn discussion server. All you have to do, again, that gray bar right underneath my video, just go down, go over to the arrow on the right, click that, and if you click on that link, you'll be taken right to the Discord. You guys can come hang out. I appreciate everybody's time. Peace.